Welcome to Storyflix. In this video, we will explain 1 Week Friends. This movie tells the story of a girl who suffers from a disease that wipes her memory every week. She then lives alone due to her disease. Suddenly, a boy appears in her life and tries to be her friend who always raises her to her lost memories. Will their friendship turn into love? Let's find out in 1 Week Friends.
1週間フレンズ
1 Week Friends begins by showing a high school student named Yuki Hayes who walks in the school library looking for books. As the new school year begins, Yuki hopes to improve his academic grades because in his first year in high school, he experienced difficulties in several subjects, especially mathematics. However, his visit to the library that time was not to look for books that he would study, but books that would be used as a medium to express his hobby, namely drawing. While in the library, he accidentally finds a library card lying on the floor. Yuki then picks it up and finds out that the card belongs to a student named B0y Fujimiya. Yuki thought that the library card owner must be a very beautiful girl. But his best friend, Shogo Kiryu, didn't care at all and turned his attention back to his book. When Yuki smelled the fragrance emanating from the library card, unexpectedly the owner came and looked at Yuki while frowning. B0y, who thought that Yuki was a perverted youth, looked at him sarcastically, took the card back, and walked away. After that, Yuki rushed home by riding the train. Not long after, B0y then boarded the same train as Yuki. However, both Yuki and B0y were completely unaware that they were in the same train. Yuki fell asleep during the train ride and just realized that he was almost past the train station stop. He immediately ran towards the door and got off the train, but realized that his book was left behind. B0y saw this, then swiftly took Yuki's book and threw it at him just before the door closed. B0y then smiled at Yuki and Yuki chased after the train while shouting thanks to her. Long story short, the new school year has begun. Now Yuki and Shogo are second-year students and are back to being classmates. However, what made Yuki even more excited was that B0y was also in the same class. Yuki immediately ran to his class and was very happy to see B0y. He was about to greet her, but the other students had already arrived and class started immediately. During recess, Yuki approached B0y to thank her in person after their brief encounter on the train. However, B0y had a confused look on her face, as if she didn't understand what Yuki meant, and then just left him. Yuki then chased after B0y and begged them to be friends. But B0y refused Yuki's request and told him that it was impossible to be friends with him. Yuki was even more confused by B0y's cold attitude towards him. Never giving up, he keeps trying to approach B0y and ask her to be friends. But B0y never heeded his request until Yuki followed B0y who walked to the school roof one day. B0y realized this, then asked Yuki to stop following her. When B0y was about to leave, the careless Yuki accidentally dropped his lunch box, so the food fell all over the place. B0y, who felt pity, then gave her lunch to Yuki. The next day, Yuki then returned B0y's lunch box and sat next to her while enjoying their lunch together. Yuki then realizes that B0y is a good girl, even though she always refuses his invitation to be friends. Yuki later finds out that she has similarly rejected other offers since her transfer 3 months ago and is thus regarded as a pariah within the school. Knowing Yuki, who continues to insist on trying to be friends with B0y, one of his teachers, named Mr. Inoue, then tells Yuki that B0y suffers from retrograde and anterograde amnesia after an accident. B0y would only have memories that lasted for 1 week, and in the following week, she would forget everything. Not only that, but she also only remembers her family. Therefore, she always avoided everyone except her family because she thought she would forget them. The doctor stated that B0y might have been traumatized by accident and wanted to forget the painful memories, but the new ones after the accident seemed to disappear on their own due to the trauma. At first, Yuki didn't believe his teacher's words, but after seeing for himself how B0y kept forgetting what had happened to them over the next few weeks, he finally believed it. Undaunted, Yuki decides to become B0y's friend, regardless of her current condition. Yuki then gets an idea to remind B0y about himself and other things, where he gives B0y a shared journal where the two can share their memories every week. After explaining the journal's usefulness to B0y, he left it there and allowed her to consider his request. When she came home from school, Kaori opened the book and read the first page, where Yuki wrote about his daily life and the activities he had been doing for the past week. Kaori smiled, reading Yuki's witty writing. Kaori then asked her mother about the shared journal, to which her mother replied that she had exchanged diaries with someone at her age and it was really fun. Shortly after, a girl named Mayu Kondo greeted Kaori. Mayu is Kaori's friend in junior high school. Because of Kaori's current condition, her mother quickly replied to Mayu's greeting because Kaori didn't remember the girl at all. That night, Kaori seemed to be indecisive when she wrote something in the diary that Yuki gave her. Knowing that her daughter would be exchanging diaries with someone, her mother looked worried because she remembered what the doctor had told her not to get too close to anyone other than her family. The next day, Kaori explains her illness and the reason for rejecting Yuki's idea of a shared journal as she returns the book to him. She didn't want to bother other people who would be forgotten by her. However, Yuki still insists on giving the book to Kaori and insists that he doesn't feel bothered at all and doesn't care if she forgets it someday. At first, Kaori refused Yuki's request until one day, Yuki accidentally put the book into Kaori's bag while giving her an umbrella. Kaori reluctantly accepted Yuki's book and umbrella and then left him. That night, Kaori went back to reading Yuki's writing in the diary about their first meeting in the library. Yuki is very happy the next day because Kaori finally accepts his request to exchange diaries. Yuki read Kaori's writing apologizing for rejecting him so many times. She also revealed that she was very happy because this was the first time someone really wanted to be friends with her and was so persistent in trying to be her friend. With the shared journal method initiated by Yuki, they become friends and slowly become closer, and Kaori's attitude also becomes more open to Yuki and his friends. In the summer, Yuki invites Kaori to attend a fireworks festival with his friends, Shogo Kiryu and Saki Yamagishi. Meanwhile, a young man named Hajime Kujo is seen taking care of his transfer to Yuki and Kaori's school. When Kujo passed by Kaori who was walking Yuki and his friends, he seemed to recognize Kaori, but Kaori just walked past him, as if she didn't know Kujo. At the fireworks festival, Kaori, who was with Yuki, accidentally met Mayu and Kujo who were walking together. Mayu greeted Kaori, but she didn't remember it at all. When Kaori passed by Kujo, he stopped her and called her his traitor. Instantly Kaori had a flashback in her memory and then collapsed unconscious. When Kaori woke up from fainting, she had no memory of Yuki who was by her side. Kaori's father is very grateful because Yuki is willing to do anything to be friends with Kaori. However, he was worried about his daughter's condition and didn't want Kaori to be burdened if Yuki acted too insistently to be friends with her. Yuki said if Kaori really didn't want to be friends with him, then he would give up on being her friend. After that, Yuki met Kaori, introduced himself to her, and handed over their diary while asking her to read the book. After reading it, Kaori finds out about her memories with Yuki and they become friends again. Long story short, Yuki in Kaori's class has a new student who is none other than Kujo. But Kaori still doesn't remember Kujo, even though Kujo knows her very well. After that, Kaori and Yuki went to the library to borrow books. Yuki wanted to borrow a French dictionary but forgot to bring his library card, so Kaori lent him her library card. When the students prepare for the upcoming school festival, Kaori declares that Yuki is her most precious friend. This then made Yuki feel very happy until he accidentally dropped a giant domino prepared for the school festival. Yuki then asked Kaori to hide in the library to not be scolded. There, Kaori thanks Yuki for giving her new memories in her life, even if only through writing. When Yuki left with Shogo, Kujo then approached Kaori. Because Kujo didn't know Kaori's condition, he was annoyed when Kaori ignored him and acted as if he didn't know him. Kaori suddenly had a headache as Kujo continued to urge her. Yuki, who saw this, then rushed to Kaori and blamed Kujo for what happened to Kaori. However, Kaori said that she was to blame for not remembering anything. In the fall, when the school festival takes place, Mayu visits Yuki's school to meet Kaori. Yuki immediately realized that Mayu and Kujo were Kaori's friends in junior high school. Therefore, Yuki took the initiative to bring Kaori together with her two old friends. Mayu then explains everything to Kaori, where the three of them are middle school friends. At that time, Kujo stated that he had to move to Tokyo. But before that, Kujo confesses his love for Kaori, which makes Kaori confused because Mayu, her best friend, likes Kujo. Because Kaori had not yet answered Kujo's confession of love, he asked to see Kaori one last time before he moved. However, one of their friends discovered Kujo's confession to Kaori, who spread it around the school, causing all the girls to ostracize Kaori, including Mayu, due to Kujo's popularity among the girls. Kaori is even considered a traitor because she has betrayed her best friend, Mayu, by accepting Kujo's feelings, when in fact, Kaori has not yet given the answer. Knowing that Kaori will see Kujo one last time, the jealous students, including Mayu, sabotage the meeting by insulting Kaori, who runs away in shame and is hit by a car. After that incident, Mayu was very sorry and tried to apologize to Kaori. Kujo, who finally knew everything, then asked Mayu to leave. Kaori suddenly felt a pain in her head from trying to remember those painful memories. However, Yuki, who was by her side, then strengthened Kaori and said that he would always protect her, no matter what, while hugging her. Not long after, Kaori finally remembered that night she promised to meet Kujo and confess her feelings to him. Knowing that it turns out that Kaori likes Kujo and fully remembers him, Yuki tries to hide his sadness and looks relieved when Kaori begins to regain her memories of the person she likes. Realizing that he will never compete with someone Kaori remembers permanently, Yuki decides to stop being friends with her. After listening to Yuki's story about Kaori, Shogo was amazed at his best friend because Yuki could bear the burden alone. After that, with tears in his eyes, Yuki then burned their shared journal which contained all of Kaori's memories with him. Since then, Kaori didn't remember Yuki at all, and he couldn't do anything but observe her and Kujo together from a distance. One day, Yuki handed his junior a French dictionary and asked the student to return it to the library. In the next 2 springs, Yuki and Kaori finally graduate from school. Yuki then met Kaori and asked her to exchange messages in their graduation book. Yuki wrote a message saying that he was very happy to see Kaori smile again. Kaori looked confused reading Yuki's message, but didn't want to think about it too much. After that, Kaori is called to the library to return a book, which turns out to be a French dictionary that Yuki borrowed a year ago, using her library membership card. Not remembering that, Kaori was confused. But then a student came and returned the book. Kaori reflexively opened the thick book and noticed that Yuki had illustrated all the contents of their shared journal into the flipbook image in the dictionary. Kaori then recalled a sliver of her memories with Yuki and then rushed off to look for him. She finally met Yuki on the school roof and called out his name, revealing that she remembered him. Despite not remembering their memories completely, Kaori told Yuki that she would try to remember them. She then asked Yuki to be her friend, and Yuki gladly accepted the offer. Through this film, we are shown that a little attention and care for someone will mean a lot to that person. Even though Yuki knows Kaori's condition is amnesiac, he still tries to befriend her, create new memories, make her life colorful again, and even help Kaori remember a piece of the past she had forgotten. Because every memory means so much to someone, even though it hurts.